Awesome. All right, a page of an alcoholic. Oh, all right, so where we're picking up today, page 92. And yeah, it's only, we're getting there. We're moving and working with others. We're going to be at the very, very bottom paragraph. And so right as we're saying, continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, that bottom paragraph. Now, where we're at this point in the book is we're helping the newcomer, the alcoholic prospect, or the sponsee. I know the book doesn't use that word, but we know what we mean if we do. We're helping them to have that step one experience. And so what we're doing is we're laying down the groundwork, laying down the foundation of step one. And so that's what we're doing. We're going to give the information of what it means to be an alcoholic. And we did that last week as we were talking about the alcoholic cycle. We were talking about the two symptoms that make us alcoholic. And we're going to talk about those. Oh, Lynn's got it. 105 in the first edition. So if you weren't able to find a regular one, we got you. All the ways we got you. It's a team effort. All right. And so that's what we're going to continue to talk about. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, just because I think it'll be helpful. So it says, continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness. And I'm going to pause there and I'm going to point something out that I promise you, this is not a hill that I'm dying on. I don't correct people. I don't language police. But you'll notice, or maybe if you haven't, I'll bring it to your attention, the book does not refer to alcoholism as a disease. Now, it was later recognized as such by the American Medical and American Psychological Association. I started that word and then got lost in the middle of it. Off my brain went. But it has been recognized as a disease subsequent to the publication of this book. But this book references alcoholism as an illness, and only an illness, again and again and again. Now, I'm going to talk about why that, rather than just being a fun fact, don't use this as something to beat over the heads of somebody if they're like, the disease of alcoholism. Don't whack them and be like, it's an illness. No. But what we're pointing out is the difference between a disease and an illness. Is a disease is the doctor's diagnosis. So a medical professional is saying, this is what you have. Whereas an illness is a patient's report of symptoms. And why that differentiation matters, or at least why I'm talking about that differentiation, is because I am the one that needs to be convinced. So I'm sure everyone in this room has had that experience where our loved ones are telling us, you're an alcoholic, you have a drinking problem, there's something wrong with you. And it does not matter how often I am told it. It is what matters is, what do I see about myself? That's what I need to see. What are the symptoms that I'm experiencing? And so the two symptoms that make up the illness of alcoholism, again, I will not correct anyone if they're like, it's a disease. It's fine. The American Medical Association. And it's been recognized as a disease. And actually, it was our homegirl, Marty Mann, who did a lot of work to get it recognized. She's our girl. We love her. So, continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. So malady is a word that just means sickness or illness. But what we are emphasizing is that if I have alcoholism, it is fatal. Fatal. To have this illness means that I'm going to die of this thing. That's what I'm up against. Now as we go into the next sentence, we're going to talk about what makes this thing fatal. So it says, talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. So first and foremost, the condition of body. And some of you guys are like, girl, we know you've been nattering all about this, the whole big book study. I know, I just have a feeling that there might be a couple people who might find this exceptionally helpful today. So when we talk about the condition of body, you can make a little note that is the physical allergy, the phenomenon of craving. And here's what that means. Or not here's what that means. Here's what that looks like. You see, when we talk about this condition of body, what we're talking about singularly is what happens once I start to drink. And welcome those that just joined. We're on page 92. So what happens to me when I take a drink? And the thing that happens to me, the condition of body, the thing that is abnormal, that never happens to a non-alcoholic, is this phenomenon of craving. That I take a drink, and that drink demands a second. And my second insists on 4. And that 4th drink will not relent until I've had 8. And my 8th drink is screaming at me until I've had 16. And so on and so forth. You see, I start to drink and I get thirstier. You see, I start to drink and I'll promise you that I'm going to go out for 3 drinks, but I always overshoot and miss the mark and drink more than I intend and drink myself into consequences. I drink myself beyond lines in the sand that I said I would never cross. Now, in the moment that it's happening, I take that drink and I get that. Yeah, I'm all right. I get that effect. And what it looks like within me as it's happening, my body is not like, hey girl, you're having the phenomenon of craving, you're about to burn your life to the ground. That's not what it looks like. It looks like I'll just have another. What's one more? You know what? Let's do shots. That's what it looks like. But what we're on the outside looking at it, I have another and another and another. And the more that I drink, the thirstier I get. You see, that next drink demands the subsequent. And I need that last drink more than I needed that first. You know, at the end of the night, end of a spree, end of the run, I need that one way more than I needed that first or second. That it pulls me. And so what that means, if you know what it is to have the allergy of the body, if you're like, yeah, that's me. Now, I will say some of us are like, wait a minute, back in 84, back in 08, back in 2016, I had 3 drinks like a lady and my pants were dry and everything. And some of us, that is we remember because it's a momentous occasion. But keep in mind, what we're looking at is the exception, not the rule. If you were to ask a non-alcoholic, hey, could you tell me a time that you controlled your drinking? They would tell you every time. Could you tell me a time where you didn't lose your shoes or your dignity or destroy the fabric of your life and your hopes and your dreams when you had a drink? They'd be like, what is wrong with you? That's never happened to me. In fact, normal drinkers, God bless them. You know, and actually, what's the Southern expression of like, bless your heart, you sweet summer child. Bless their heart, because they will try to tell us one of their drunk stories where it's like, oh, wouldn't you believe it? I got a little blackout drunk in Vegas one time. Okay, I mean, I was getting blackout drunk on a Tuesday, but that's cool. You too, bud. Bless your heart, right? So if my experience is that I take that drink and I can't control the amount that I take, what we likely know from our lived experiences is that I drink beyond lines in the sand. I drink into where I'm causing hurt and pain and consequences and doing things I never wanted to do and hurting people that I never wanted to hurt. And if we're here today, we probably have the inclination that it is not ever safe for me to drink again, and that is true. Now, that's not step 1. That's a part of step 1. The allergy of the body means that there will never be a time when I can ever safely drink again. And if I got some examples of my life when I started to drink and I couldn't control it, I have this thing. I've got this allergy and there will never be a time that I can safely drink. But when it talks about the condition of mind, if you're writing in your book, you can make a note that is the mental obsession. And the condition of mind is what makes this illness fatal, what makes this predicament hopeless. And what it is singularly the thought that I have when I am sober. So the obsession of the mind is a sober thought that I have that takes me back to the first drink again and again and again. And what it looks like is this time will be different. What it looks like is nobody will ever know. What it looks like is I just got to get it out of my system. I'll go on a big bender. I'll have a good surrender. That's it. That's what rhymes. How could it go wrong? And actually, sometimes it looks like, hey, a little bit of self-awareness. I'm being miserable to everyone in my life. I'm a real capital B is what I am. I won't finish that word, but it's capitalized. And listen, if I take a drink or two, I'll take the edge off. I'll be nicer to everyone. My relapse, it's a public service. You're welcome. By which I mean I will be back around for the amends because it's my bad on the TV. Also, if you do not actively have a sponsor, my bad is not how we make amends in Alcoholics Anonymous. But it also, just as much as it looks like that, it looks like, my problem was drinking with Canadians. There's no American alcoholics, or in Ireland. Thanks for coming. I know it's late. There's no alcoholics there. It'll be completely different south of the border. There's no problems there. Or it looks like if you're feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get drunk too. Man, I'm going to kill myself. I can't stand this pain. I need a drink. It looks like a thought that is on me all day that goes, take a drink, 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 until what little willpower I was able to muster is inevitably eroded away and I got a drink in my hand. And just as much as it's that, it is also a case of the suddenlies. I'm out there living my life. I don't want to drink. I want to be sober. I'm trying to follow the rules of my sober living house or whatever it is. And I'm drinking. I got a drink in my hand and I almost don't know how it happened. Now that is what makes this illness hopeless. That is what makes this illness fatal. You see, step one is not that I can never, ever safely drink again. And that is the acknowledgement of the allergy. But what a complete and total step one is that I can never, ever, ever safely drink again, and I will. And the I will is because the obsession of the mind. I have a thought that is dooming me to come back again and again and again to the first drink. Now, if you're like, oh, I don't know if that's me. Well, we can think about those times that we've sworn off. The morning after, when we're, or even kind of during, when we're, about 3 a.m. and we're assuming the spiritual prayer position, praying to the porcelain gods, right on the toilet, puking our brains out. Dear God, please make it stop. Didn't have a problem with prayer then, is all I'm saying. I was even doing it on my knees. I was devout as all heck when I was doing those prayers. But a time in my life where I have sworn off. Went to AA, went to a doctor, got out of the hospital, got out of jail, went to detox, went to rehab, maybe took a stab at some of these steps. A time in my life where I've sworn off. And if I've drank again, what that means is that I very likely have this illness. And what that means is that I will drink again. And you see, when I have an understanding that is step one, that changes how I approach this thing. You see, step one is like, this is a ticking time bomb. It's not a matter of if, but when. If we've ever heard, in AA, it's not a race. You betcha it's a race. You betcha it is. Now, I'm not racing you, although I am competitive. And some of y'all know I will put people in amends races where they got to race each other to get all their amends done. It's competitive. But who I am racing is I'm racing the obsession of the mind. I'm racing the inevitability of the first drink. And I need to have a spiritual experience before that happens. And so that's what we're talking about in regards to step one. It says, keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Share from my own experience what the allergy looked like for me. And some of y'all know I'm behind the dumpster, pinky up like a lady. But what was that like for me? And what were my experiences of the obsession of the mind when I said I was never going to do it again? But a thought came in, and this time will be different. A thought came in, nobody will ever know. I'm just going to drink tonight. I'll take the edge off. I'll get it back together on Monday. What were my thoughts? And it says, explain that many are doomed who never realized their predicament. You see, I did not know what it meant to be an alcoholic. And I came here and I would compare the consequences. But alcoholism is not about the consequences. The consequences can help light a fire under a butt. But I got here young. And when I got here, I was looking for all the ways I wasn't like you, all the ways that I was different. And I was comparing the consequences. Consequences do not make me an alcoholic. They can be a sign that I've got the allergy. They can be a sign. But what makes me an alcoholic is the obsession of the body and the allergy of the mind. That is what makes me an alcoholic. Now, I came here and I was like, I'm not as bad as you guys. I've never had a DUI. Now, keep in mind, I've never had a driver's license. Now, some of the real ones know you don't need a driver's license for a DUI. Some of us know that. But, kind of helps to drive to get a DUI. And then I had never had a divorce. Now, keep in mind, to be legally married, that requires enough functionality to sign marriage papers. And that was beyond my capabilities. So I had never been married. I was common law, but you don't need to do paperwork to unfile that. You just need to, decouple with love, or just go missing for a while. That's what I would do. Like a lady, he would do it too. Anyway, but like I would look for all these consequences, and I was like, I've never been to jail. Yeah, I didn't get caught. Now, to be fair, when I say I didn't get caught, I wasn't doing any highbrow crime or anything. But like, what makes me an alcoholic is those two things. When I start, can I control the amount that I drink every single time? And when I've tried to stay sober, have I been able to stay sober? That's it. That's it. That is alcoholism. And it says, doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story, unless it will serve some good purpose. But you may talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. And we're seeing again and again the transition that we go from hopeless to hope. I need to start with that place of hopelessness to see that, oh my gosh, I am going to drink again. That's where I need to start. Because only when I can see the reality of my predicament, which is hopeless, am I going to do the things my sponsor tells me to do. Because none of those, let's be real, none of that is appealing. None of that I was just about to do. But we can talk about the hopelessness because there is a solution. And the solution that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual awakening. And man, if you're like me when I got here, I'd be like, oh, no, thank you. Oh, no, thank you. Do not want. No, thank you. Not for me. Gross. No, I don't want that. But that is our solution. So it says you will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, the traits of the alcoholic. Now, I won't make anyone do a show of hands or anything like that. But does this sound familiar when we talk about that lack of control and lack of choice? When we talk about what it means to be an alcoholic is that I will relapse, and I have relapsed, and we will relapse, and that will happen. But we've got a solution. And that solution, that spiritual awakening, what it offers is permanent contented sobriety. And that is important. Permanent contented sobriety. That's what's available for each and every one of us. So it says, if his own doctor is willing to tell him he's alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. And now what we're doing is we're transitioning from step one into laying down the information of step two. And I'll as we go on, what I'll do is I'll put up the I can do it now. Now that I'm talking about it, my little flow chart, because one day you're drinking booze behind a dumpster thinking you're a bad bee, a badass. The next day you're like, oh boy, I can't wait to turn this chapter into a flow chart. How delightful. It really snuck up on me. Just like the bird watching thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm a street level drunk, and then it's like, oh, is that a northern flicker? Or a red shafted northern flicker? Delightful. Like, it just sneaks up on you. Alrighty. So this is kind of the flow chart. And so what that's exactly what that right here where it says describe yourself as an alcoholic, talk about your experiences, focus on the obsession and the hopelessness. That is the information for step one. And now what we're doing at the top of page 93 is giving them the information for step two, which is Woohoo! It's right up there. I don't know what I'm doing, but well, I mean, actually, yeah, no, that's an accurate assessment of me as a human being. Cool. So it says, so he has become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask that question if he will. Now, this is in italics, which is to say, with emphasis. It says, tell him exactly what happened to you. So what we are going to do is we are going to share from our own experience exactly what happened to us. And what happened to us is that spiritual awakening, is that spiritual experience. That's what happened. So it's important that I have experience with that I can share, whether it be a slower burn, educational variety, or a white light. And keep in mind, I couldn't stay well on one drink. I can't stay well on one experience. So if I haven't had that white light, if I keep seeking, we're going to have a powerful experience. So it says, stress the spiritual feature freely. We're not going to lie about what this thing is or hide what this thing is. Now, this is important. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic. So with emphasis, that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. You don't have to view God or a higher power or the creator or the spirit of the universe in the same way that I do. In fact, if you've been coming to this thing a while, you probably would have heard me do my spiritual journey as compared to like going on Tinder. And you might be like, girl, nothing to do with that. No, I'm not here for it. But it says, he can choose any conception he likes, provided that it makes sense to him. So what we're doing in step 2 and laying down the information of step 2 is really trying to, can you believe a spiritual experience exists? And I'll do the stop share. Can you believe that a spiritual experience is possible? That's it. You don't have to like God. You don't have to know God. You don't have to, you can have buckets of religious trauma. You can have a lot of old ideas and prejudices, but can we believe a spiritual experience is possible? That's all we're asking in step 2. And I mean, okay, to be fair, you could probably guess that I've got better things to do on a Wednesday. You won't believe that I've not got better things to do, but we can probably believe that like Vivian's got better things to do on a Wednesday than show up here and lie about our experience, right? That idea, could I believe that the miracle that has happened in the lives of the people around me? You come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, whether they be in person or virtual, and you see people that drank the way that I drank. They went through what I went through. They experienced what I experienced. Man, they know what it is like. They were doing the 3 a.m. praying to the porcelain gods too. It's like somebody sharing their story and they're reading my diary and it's a little creepy. Boundaries, guys, right? And all I need to believe is that a change happened to them. I don't need to like it. I don't need to define it. I don't need to describe it. I just need to believe it exists. And when I see people who are happy, who are sober, who have recovered, the light is on in their eyes, man, I cannot deny that there is a change that has happened to them. And so when it says the main thing is that he be willing to believe in a capital P power greater than himself, and he live by spiritual principles. We talk about step 2 quite a lot at this study. As we refer to step 2, as it's written on page 59 or on the Zoom screen or on the wall, it says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. That's step 2, part 1. Could I believe that there is a power greater than myself? Keep in mind, I just admitted alcoholism was one. If I did my first step, I just admitted that was one. I don't need to know that power. I don't need to define that power. I don't need to like that power. But could there be a power that is greater than myself? Could there be? And I cannot deny that you have one that is working in your life, whatever you call it, because you're happy and you're sober and there is a light. There is a tangible, man, you can feel it. You can feel it when somebody awakens spiritually. There is a light that comes on within them. And even if you're new and you're struggling, you can tell that there are those stupid, happy, annoying jerks. And today that might be me. I'm so sorry for that. Yeah. My bad. Now that's step 2, part 1. Step 2, part 2 says, could restore us to sanity. So came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Could I believe that the miracle that has happened in your life, where the obsession of the mind is gone, it is taken from me. That thought to go back to the first drink, it's gone. Those 10-step promises. Could I believe that that could happen to me? If I did what you did. That's the thing. It's like in this moment, it's like, no, you don't understand. I'm so much worse than you. I'm so different. But man, if you did what I did, is it possible that that power that worked in my life could work in yours? That's all I need to believe. I don't need to do any more than that. And if I'm willing to live by spiritual principles, if I'm willing to take the course of action that is outlined, it does not matter if I struggle with faith. It does not matter if I have God resentment, religious trauma. It doesn't matter if it's so intellectually difficult for me to figure out, what do you mean this God thing? What matters is the actions that I take. If I'm willing to take the actions, it will happen for me. But if I stay stuck in what I think, or what I think, or what I think and I think I believe, if I stay stuck there, and it's like, there is nothing worse than when we've relapsed and we want to tell somebody what we think about God. Oh God, it is. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. What I think cannot keep me sober. What I believe cannot keep me sober. Nothing less than a spiritual experience can keep me sober. Do I believe that one exists? That's step two. And it says, when dealing with such a person, you would better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. Now, twice in 2 paragraphs, we've used the phrase spiritual principles. What do we mean when we say spiritual principles? Now, I always mention I'm taking a controversial stance, but not super duper controversial, because I still want you to like me. That defect hasn't left. But for me, the spiritual principles are not these nebulous concepts like hope or faith or courage. And if they are for you, what I want you to know is you are right and I am wrong. But I will say I do have a lot of fun being wrong. So come join me a little bit, just come check it out. But for me, the spiritual principles are the tangible actions of the 12 steps. So that is what I'm talking about when it's like living by spiritual principles. I can't live by faith because there's something about my brain that's like, I need you to explain what that looks like. And some of you guys know there's nothing worse than you guys would never do this, but when you're obsessing over somebody, relationship wise, Mr. Grippy Socks, yeah, Mr. Right, or Mr. Right Now, or in my case, Mr. Right Out of Jail. It's meant to be. We're obsessing and you sort of share your guts about it at meetings or to your sponsor 1,000,000 times over, and your sponsor's like, let go, let God. And then what do I say? I say, wow, that sounds like a great idea, because I don't want you to think I'm stupid. But what's the reality? I'm like, how the heck do I do that? I don't know how to let go, let God. And so how does one let go, let God? How does one live with faith? How does one turn it over? Paige, you got to turn it over. Great. Is that like an apple turnover? I don't know how this thing works, right? And so for me, I didn't work well with those nebulous concepts. What I needed is tangible actions. And so how do I turn it over? How do I let go, let God? Is I take the actions of the steps. I write inventory on it. I share that inventory with someone. What I see, the stuff inside of me that I see that's blocking me from this power, I ask God to take it from me. If I've caused harm, I go and I make my amends. I deepen my life with prayer, with meditation, and I go and I help others. That is something that I can practice. And so when it says when dealing with such a person, you would better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. Now, it's talking about not trying to bring in religious trauma or set off religious trauma or prejudices or old ideas, but it's also really tangible to be like, let's write some inventory on that. That's the thing. And it says, there is no use arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. So what we're trying to do is use kind of neutral language that might not carry a whole lot of baggage. When I meet with sponsees, I always say, every single time, I'm like, it's always good to start with a prayer. Would you like to pray? Would you like me to pray? I don't mind either way. But from the get-go, yeah. And then it's like, you pray, Paige. And then I'll let you know, they're always like, oh, your prayers are so good. And I'm like, I'll believe you. I think you just want me to pray. But I'll take the buttering. I'll take the buttering up. But when we talk about the word prejudice, to have prejudice is to prejudge, to have an opinion about which I have no experience. And we might come with a lot of religious baggage, a lot of religious trauma. So we don't want to set that off when we're just talking about, could there be a power greater than ourselves? But I also want to point something out. If you're here today and you're like, that's me, you're describing me, we're not ignoring that. We're going to have a look at that in the 4-step inventory. So that's where we're going. So it says, don't raise such issues no matter what your own convictions are. So when I pray with people, I use the word for a power greater than themselves that I'm like, what word do you use? I'll use that word, because it doesn't matter to me. I'm accessing the power that is beyond the word, the experience that is beyond the word. I'll use whatever word you want. And when I got here, I started with higher power, which is 2 words. And it's a whole lot of syllables, which, and you guys know me, I'm nattering on and on and on and on. I'm pretty sure I need to be in some sort of sister fellowship, on and on and on and on, anonymous, but that idea that I'll use whatever works. And when I used higher power, if you're like, is she really an alcoholic? She got sober young. Don't you worry. My life was burnt to the ground efficiently. I am an efficient sort of alcoholic. And that same thing carried over into doing this work where it's like higher power. Oh, that's so long, so tough to say. I just started to use the word God. Out of convenience. That's how I started using that word. I mean efficiency. Not convenience, efficiency, a little bit of both. And so guess what happened? I started to use that word as I prayed. I started to use that word in meditation. I started to use that word in inventory. And I began to use that word, and that word no longer began to mean what I assumed you meant when you used that word. I didn't have the courage to ask you. Keep in mind, when I got here, I wasn't asking a whole lot of questions, because I had a feeling you'd ask me one that I didn't have the answer to. And I always like to point to, how's it going, Paige? Man, that is a real head scratcher, I don't know. And I was avoiding that at all costs. But what happened is I began to use that word no longer began to mean what I assumed you meant. It no longer began to mean some of the stuff that carried some baggage. That word began to mean what I had experienced through these steps. That's what I'm after. I couldn't stay well with a thought of a drink or an opinion on a drink or anything like that. I was after an experience with the drink. I'm after an experience with this power. And so I'll use whatever word my sponsees work with. And there's some we started and they've had some fun ones. And I'm here for that. So it says your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. So if we're working with somebody who's already religious, now I will say in my modern experience, it's not so much the religious, although there is that. There's also somebody that's been around AA for a long time and keeps relapsing. So if you've been working with people, you might find people that are really religious but can't stay sober. But this paragraph also applies to those that have been around Alcoholics Anonymous a while and can't stay sober. So I'm just wanting to add a little bit of extra depth to this paragraph. So his religious education and training may be far superior to yours. And I'm sure there are people who for surezies have more intellectual understanding and believe me, education and training, you win. I don't got that. But also those people who've been to every rehab up and down the East Coast, or all, done a lot of therapy or done a lot of that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they might still have the same idea. In that case, he's going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. Oh, I've been in and around AA. How could you possibly help me? And this is the answer. But he will be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and why yours seem to work so well. See, if somebody is in and out, it's not what happened. It's what never happened or what stopped happening. The relapse is inevitable. We were talking about that in step 1. The relapse is inevitable. It's not a matter of if I relapse, it's when. And the only thing for an alcoholic that will stop a relapse, if I don't have alcoholism, there's lots of things that I can do. But if I have this illness, as outlined in this book, the solution is a spiritual awakening that I grow and deepen for the rest of my life. And anything less than that, and I will drink again. So why did this person's convictions not work? Because they did not take the course of action. Or they stopped taking the course of action. It really is that simple. And why do mine seem to work so well? I'm not special. I mean, keep in mind, we would put me on a short bus. I am disabled. I got to make that joke. But it's because I do a lot. I do a lot. That's why I do a lot on a daily basis. And you might be like, oh, St. Paige. No, I do a lot because I need to do a lot, Oh, I need to, So it says and this is what we're talking about. He may be an example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. Faith, which is to say belief, is not enough to keep us sober. To be vital, which is to say to be life-giving for an alcoholic to stay sober. To survive, I'm up against a fatal illness. For survival, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish, constructive action. Oh, man. You're telling me I can't stay sober on a step 1. You're telling me I can't stay sober on a step 2. You're telling me I got to do work. Not cool. Not cool. And that's what we're talking about. There's this theme throughout this book, and we're seeing it, these threads. There's a whole bunch of threads and a whole bunch of themes. But one of the themes is faith without works is dead. So belief in the power of God, belief in the power of AA, belief in the power of steps without the constructive daily action of the 12 steps, and I will drink again. That is what faith without works is dead means. I can have all the belief in AA. I could have the best sponsor in the world. I could have, mine's pretty great. I'm like, he's nice to me. It's the wildest thing. Yeah. But I could have all of that. But if I do not take the actions, I will drink again. That's what we're talking about. And it says, let him see that you are not there to instruct him in religion. So I'm not here to do theological lessons. And it says, admit that he probably knows more about it than you do. But now this is a real mic drop humdinger zinger moment right here. It says, admit that he probably knows more about it than you do, but call to his attention the fact that however deep in his faith and knowledge, he could not have applied it, or he would not drink. Ooh, if you were like, you guys remember like 8 Mile or like any sort of like rap battle? That's like that mic drop moment where it's like, it's kind of like that spiritual, well, how's that working for you? Oh, right in the chest. You got me, bud, right? Where it's like, yeah, you maybe you know more about, all of this and all of that and all of this and all of that. But have you applied it? Have you applied it? And the answer is, you haven't, or you wouldn't be relapsing. Oh, that's a burn. Now, keep in mind, I think that suggestion is more when somebody's a little argumentative. Don't come out of the gate with somebody that's been struggling and be like, you didn't apply it, bro. Like, it's a little aggressive. No, it's if somebody's like fighting you on it. So, and it says, perhaps your story will help him to see where he has failed to practice the very precepts he knows so well. So this person who's perhaps very religious, or that person who's learned a lot being around AA, or learned a lot being through various treatment centers, we have not applied it. Now keep in mind, not everything we hear in AA aligns with what's in the book, and not, and so that's important too. There's a lot of people who are very, very well versed in things like, just keep coming back. Now, to be fair, please do keep coming back. But also, I can't stay sober on just coming to meetings, or just don't drink, or play the tape to the end, or pick up the phone before you pick up a drink. In fact, for an alcoholic, those are things I am incapable of doing when push comes to shove. When the obsession is on me, I can't do those things. And then when we relapse, we feel like we're bad, or we didn't want it hard enough, or we didn't try, why didn't we call? But the reality is we're up against an illness over which we could not possibly have had any power. So it goes on to say, perhaps your story will help him see where he has failed to practice the very precepts he knows so well. We represent no particular faith or denomination. This is not a religious thing, but it is spiritual. And it is about bringing about a spiritual awakening. That is the point. We're not going to hiding it does not help. And there's sometimes when I'm working with people or talking with people, and they're like, I have a really hard time with the spiritual part of the program, which is always confusing to me, because I'm like, the program is the 12 steps, which is outlined in the book. And the whole point of them is to clear away the stuff inside of me that's blocking me from this power. What's the not spiritual part of the program? To which they probably are confusing the meetings with the program. And believe me, I love meetings. I've never in my entire sobriety had a hard time going to meetings. I love them, whether they have cookies or not. I love them. or if you go to sometimes you go to an in-person women's meeting, and for some reason it's the women's meetings. They'll have the liquid coffee creamer, not that one that you can't stir it in no matter how hard you try. It just floating on the top like a little iceberg of whatever is in there. Right? And listen, you give me, I can't drink coffee anymore, but you give me that, I'm here for the powdered creamer. I'm here for I'm here for all of it. I love meetings. I've always loved meetings, but they don't have the power to change me. They don't have the power to bring about the spiritual awakening. They can encourage it and support it. And that's kind of the thing too, is if I'm new, let's go to meetings where people are excited about AA, enthusiastic about AA, they're cheerleading the steps and are doing the work, right? Who I spend time with is going to help dictate the direction that I go. If I'm hanging out with people that aren't working steps, well, that fourth step is probably not going to feel as appealing as when I'm working with people who are like, yeah, let's sit together and let's do it together, And so, yeah, I love meetings. Meetings will not keep me sober. Meetings are also a wonderful place to find newcomers to work with, as we have in this chapter, working with others. So, all right. So, it says we're dealing only with general principles common to most denominations. What are the general principles? What are the general course of action? Because we borrowed the course of action from the Oxford group. And essentially what it is about giving our life to a greater power, surrendering to God. The word surrender is also not found in the first 164 pages. And that's likely because of its close association with the Oxford group, because they were talking a lot about surrender. And so that's one of the principles. The other was this looking inwards and confession, confessing the things in us that were blocking us. Also restitution, making amends, as well as trying to be of service to others. They also had a prayer and meditation life that would draw them closer to God and would help them live a more surrendered life. And those ideas of confession, amends, which restitution, apologizing, paying the money back, you'll find that crazy. I know. And here's the thing: you're not giving them your money. You're giving them their money back. Wild. But helping others, being of service, you'll find these ideas in every healthy religion, every healthy form of spirituality. So that's what it's saying. And now, so we've laid down the foundation of step 1, which is the obsession of the mind, the allergy of the body, and that hopelessness where I will drink again. We've laid down the foundation of step 2, which is the idea that there could be a spiritual awakening, that exists. I don't have it now. It's not happening at step 2, but I can see that it exists. And now what we're going to do is we're going to lay down the information so that the alcoholic can make a third step decision. Now, the third step decision is ultimately a decision to work these 12 steps as a way of life, like our life depends on it, because it does. It is a decision to take the course of action outlined in this book, to take me from the hopelessness of I will drink again to the solution where we can experience permanent contented sobriety. That's what the third step decision is, but I will read it. So it says, outline the program of action. The program of action, which is the 12 steps. So we're outlining the 12 steps. How you made a self-appraisal. The self-appraisal we made is step 4. So talk about how I made my step 4 and how I shared that with another human being and God in the 5th step. And it says how you straighten out your past. So explain from my own experience the amends process. You know, we don't have to go into grisly detail, but like this is what we're going to do. It'll be really, there's nothing more helpful when you're working with a sponsee who's afraid of making amends, and you kind of do that. Okay, let's send out the approaches, and while we're waiting on responses, that'll get, listen, if the AA coffee doesn't get the digestive stuff moving, I promise you the sending out amends approaches, that'll get it moving. You know, if you're having feeling a little backed up, that'll get it going. And while they do, I often tell them stories about my amends and humorous amends stories and amends when it hasn't gone well, you know? Like, man, we put a lot of emphasis in war stories, but I think there's just as much, if not more value in like amends stories. Anywho, so basically explain the steps. So explain how you made a self-appraisal, step 4, how you straighten out your past, step 9, and why you are now endeavoring to be helpful to him, step 12. It is important for him to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. It's important that we communicate that we are working with a newcomer or a prospect or a sponsee because we need to stay sober. And that is a really helpful way to approach it. It goes on to say, actually, he may be helping you more than you are helping him. Now, if you have not sponsored, I guarantee at this point in your mind, you're thinking, are you out of your mind? Absolutely not. Every sponsee that I've ever worked with where we've gone through this part of the book and they've not yet sponsored has been like, oh, okay, like that absolutely cannot be true. You are out of your mind. But every time I've gone through this with a sponsee and they're working with others and they're sponsoring, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can't tell you how helpful it is to work with others. It's so helpful to me. And actually, that little moment is another example of this thing being ineffable. I use that word. Why? Because I learned it and it's a fun word to use. And it ties into my William James Varieties of Religious Experience. I'm so fun at parties. Woo! But ineffable means to be experienced, to be understood. So often I want to approach this thing as an intellectual exercise. I want to think it. I want to know it. I want to figure it out. But it's not. It's experiential. I cannot in a heart level way agree and make sense of actually he may be helping you more than you are helping him until I've experienced it. Until I've experienced where life has hit me and I'm done. And I sit down with the sponsee and we kick it off with a prayer and we get into work. And then after, man, I feel so much better. This thing is ineffable. I can't get well off an intellectual idea. I need the experience. So I do 2 big book studies on Wednesdays, and at the first big book study, there's a gentleman who gives me words of the day that I have to sneak into the big book study, and then people guess. It's a thing we do. I'm just like, oh gosh, like it probably feels like ineffable. Is that the word of the day? Wrong big book study. Wrong one. But it is a fun one, so feel free to use it, and I don't need credit if you're like, oh, that you don't tell anyone where you got it from. So make it plain that he is under no obligation to you. That there's no obligation. Now, I will say I do set like reasonable boundaries, which is if we make an appointment, we keep an appointment because my time is valuable. and because there are other people who want my help and we're taking from them. And also if people who, just so you know, people who don't make appointments don't stay sober. You know, sponsees that I've worked with that have no-showed, they don't stay sober. Sponsees that I've worked with that have begun to, like every once in a while, emergencies happen, you know, things come up. But if rescheduling becomes a habit, they don't stay sober. They don't. And here's why. Because I don't reschedule a priority. I don't reschedule. If it's a priority, it's not what gets rescheduled. And if you're wondering, am I prioritizing my recovery? A pain in the butt way to figure out whether you are or you're not is to like, hey, am I showing up? Am I keeping my appointments even when I'm absolutely terrified of them? That's how I know I'm making this thing a priority. So that's just also a helpful piece of information. And if you're working with sponsees and they're blowing you off and they're no showing or they're rescheduling, it's also helpful to have that piece of information that you can give to them. Because when that was happening to me, I would get resentful. Especially back in the day before Zoom. I'd have to get my little butt. Like I'd have to roll down the block. Now that roll down the block is not that hard. But then I'd have to get on the bus and I'd have to go down and we'd meet them at the coffee shop and I'd have to sit there and wait for them. And I'd have to do that in winter. And it's a little hard to roll down the block when there is snow. Just going to throw that out there. And I would sit there and they would no-show, or I'd be sitting there and they'd cancel on me and I would get resentful. Oh, those newcomers, not you guys. You guys can't relate to that. You're spiritual giants. I would never be frustrated with the actions of another alcoholic, not you. But I would get resentful. And what I learned to do is I didn't have the courage or the ability to say, hey, I need you to respect my time and match my effort, which is a beautiful way to communicate, respect my time, match my effort. But I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the ability to do that. So what I started with was just telling them the truth. People that do not make appointments, people that reschedule their appointments, people that put this thing off, in my experience, they don't stay sober. You do what you want with that information. And that's not about me. And I'm still being honest with them. Alrighty. Aware of the time, we're going to get through this paragraph to the best of our ability. So, make it plain he's under no obligation to you, that you hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. That we're going to be sponsoring, and I help people through that from the get-go, helping people work with others, because that is this deal. And if you're here today and you're like, man, that's scary, that's overwhelming. Again, alcoholism is a progressive, fatal, incurable disease. You're not going to make it worse. It's already as bad as it can be. And if we show up with this book, these directions, a connection with a power greater than ourselves and our own experience, who knows? We might even be able to help. But you're not going to make it worse. All right, suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. Make it clear that he is not under pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. You shouldn't be offended if he wants to call it off, for he has helped you more than you have helped him. And I'm going to point something out. This conversation, where we have laid down the information of steps 1, 2, and 3, has been a single appointment, a single meeting, giving that person that information. So again, and like there are times where I work with people and I can tell that we don't have time to go through the book line by line. And I go hard when we go line by line. I work with them every single day for a couple hours a day to go through the book line by line, because I found that helpful in them being able to sponsor others and to do so with flexibility. But there's times we can't wait for the week or two to get through the step 1. And we got to do step 1 in one sitting. And we can lay down the information of step 1, 2, 3 in one sitting. In fact, the last time I did a first step with somebody, chronic relapse, or she's struggling. And, I was like, you know what step 1 is? Step 1 is, can you believe that if you don't make that amends you don't want to make, that you're going to drink again? That's step 1, that I'm going to drink again. That's it. So, anywho, focus. I'm talking to me, not to you. You guys are doing a great job of focusing. I can tell. It's delightful. I'm the one that's struggling, and I got to wrap this up. And we're at the time, so we're going. So make it clear that he is not under pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. You should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he has helped you more than you have helped him. Again, another one of those lines that I can only truly believe if I'm working with others, that this thing is experiential. So it says, if your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, that's seeking to understand, not just boop, 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 but let's talk about our experiences. You have perhaps made a friend. Maybe you have disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. This is all to the good, and this line is important. The more hopeless he feels, the better. He will be more likely to follow your suggestions. It is only when I'm hopeless that I'm willing to grab a hold of the hope. That window of willingness has got to be opened. And there's that old AA saying, what are we here to do? We're here to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable, you know? Yeah, you guys know. And so, yeah, that's what we're here to do. And for me, and I'll end on this, when it says he will be the more hopeless he is, the better, the more likely he will be to follow your suggestions. There is that window of willingness when we burn our life to the ground and we're in so much pain where we're willing to take a course of action. As somebody who works with others, I've got to work with them in that window, because if I don't, that window will close, and it always closes. So if you're here today, what I want you to know is let's dive in. Let's get to work. You don't have to wait to get well. And yeah, our very life depends on helping you. So thank you for letting me share.